Hi guys, this is SDJR88 speaking with a quick tutorial on how to make corrugated iron sheets for your model railway or diorama. This is very simple and very quick, and all you need is these items right in front of you here. So all you need is a rolling pin, a simple ballpoint pen, steel ruler, a pair of scissors, and of course some aluminium takeaway trays. So without further ado, let's get into the tutorial. Right, so the first step, you need your aluminium trays. Now, you get these in two ways. The first is we basically go to a supermarket and you can buy brand new ones straight from the packet. You get quite a few of these in a tray depending on how many you need, though you will get a lot of corrugated iron sheets out of them. The second way is of course to buy a takeaway meal, which is what I quite enjoy. So that is probably the most fun and easiest way of doing this. So then once you've got that, all you just need to do is simply cut the corners. Obviously give them a wash out if you've had a takeaway meal. So I've washed these up just like the dishes so they're not greasy or anything, they're nice and clean and shiny. But it won't really matter because they will be painted up at a later date. Now you snip the corners like that, and you flatten the edges down. Try to pull out the little tabs on the edge there to get the most out of the surface area. And then this is where the rolling pin comes in handy, because as you can see it's quite ruffled and stuff and you really need a nice flat surface. So you simply just get the rolling pin. Mind your hands on the edges because it can be quite sharp. And basically just get the worst of the creases out of the aluminium sheet. It's starting to look a lot better now. Apologies if this is not quite in shot. It doesn't have to be perfect, as after all, these aluminium sheets are never really perfect in real life. They have quite a lot of ridges and other imperfections in them. And especially for the use, what I'm going to use these for, as you know, I'm constructing a World War I trench railway, and these will become part of the furnishings for the trenches as part of the trench walls and stuff, so these will be all dirty and rusty and submerged and other bits and pieces. There we are, so it's better already. So we've got one nice flat aluminium sheet. Right, for the next step, I'm going to trim off the little tab bits, as they tend to not be the smoothest of parts. Obviously you can try your best to flatten them out, though I prefer to remove them. Be careful of the little tiny bits of fragments of metal that do sort of come off, because there's little swaths that will pop off. So keep an eye on those. Go around the outside every part of the sheet. And there you go, so we should have a nice flat bit now. And then the next part, which I find easier, is if you cut the sheet into sections. So we cut off this edge here, that's one section. The end bit here, 2, 3, there we go, 4 and 5. So once you've all cut them into sections, it's now for the fun part, which is of course marking out the lines on the corrugated iron sheets. So what you need here is a ruler and a simple ballpoint pen. And of course it doesn't need to be a working pen, it just needs to be a ballpoint pen. So what you do is, if I move these to one side, use base sheet, you just get the steel ruler, try and move my hand, and you simply just scold a line at intervals into the sheet. Now, depending on what scale you're modelling, the lines could be further or closer away. Now, because this is going to be 00 scale or 009, which is basically narrow gauge, 1.76 scale, 1.72 scale, the line's going to be quite close together on this one. And you simply just keep on going and score the line across the sheet. After all that hard work with the pen and ruler, you should have something that looks a bit like this. And as you can see, there's a lovely corrugated sort of effect now on the sheet. Not on one side, but on both sides, where basically the pen has sort of pressed through part of the sheet and it's come through on the other side as well. So it really does give a lovely effect as real corrugated sheets. One thing you will have to do though, as you saw during the little bit with the pen and the ruler, is you will have to flatten the sheet out again, as it does have a habit of rolling up, a bit like a Swiss roll, as you go along with the pen. So what I do is I get the rolling pin and I just go gently over at that angle there and gradually flatten it back out. It doesn't have to be perfectly flat because it will be cut at a later date, but just get it flat enough so it's ready for priming and painting, which is of course the next stage. So once you prime the surface, I've just gone over with Tamiya primer spray, which is white. It doesn't have to be perfect, but basically what this is, it just provides a nice rough textured surface for the actual paint you're just about to apply. So what I'm going to do now is going to go over with this, which is Humbrol Matte 113, which is rust. And I'm just going to go over the whole sheet on both sides. And then that will provide a base coat, which we will then start adding different colours and textures to sort of build up the colour of the steel sheets. So once the rust has dried, next step is to add a bit of colour, so sort of the original sort of steel colour. For this I'm using matte 64 paint. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a similar effect to what I did with the stone building that you've seen on my trench railway, and that is dry brushing. So this is simply where you get a blob of paint on your brush, you rub off the majority of it on a bit of tissue here like this, and then you brush it on. Now, I'm not going to cover the full area, I'm going to leave little patches where the brown is showing completely through to give the effect where the main sort of, the rust has really come through. Now, at this point, the way you're going to be painting this grey totally depends on what purpose you plan to use these sheets for. So if you're using them for a roof, obviously you paint down the streaks there. Sort of where water would run down them. But as I'm using this for my trench railway, in trenches they were mounted horizontally, and basically the rust would sort of appear coming downwards as the water would run down them that way. So that's the way I'm going to paint this now. So after a couple of minutes of dry brushing, and you should have something that looks a bit like this. And as you can see, you can build up quite a nice rusty metal effect with just the 2 pots of paint there. Of course, if you wish to improve on this any further, you could use weathering powders or washes, depending on what sort of use you plan to use these corrugated sheets for. So of course you'll weather this differently if you plan to use these as a roofing material to how I'm going to weather it, which is of course I'm using them for a trench wall, so they'll be weathered completely differently to if they were on a roof. So you could either weather them now, so while you've got it still as one full sheet, or you could do what I plan to do, which is of course cut them to size. So being part of a trench wall, they'll be about that wide, and I'll cut them into strips. I'll get a few out of this piece, and of course more out of the other one once I've done it. And basically, you just simply cut them up, glue them into position, and then I'll weather them there, and then that way I can weather the surrounding area as well, so they all blend in quite nicely. So I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. It's amazing really what you can create from just a few leftover bits and pieces, and basically these have been created for practically next to nothing. The only things of course that I've had to pay for is the 2 pots of paint, but then again I bought those for weathering one of my resin buildings and the tanks. So really they're practically nothing, and of course the only thing I really had to pay for is the Chinese mill. So yeah, so a nice way of recycling, and of course you get a nice little bit of bit of decoration for your layout. So I hope you enjoyed this tutorial, and I'll leave you with some shots of these corrugated iron sheets in location on the layout. So this has been SDJRSMF88 speaking, and thanks for watching.